I am Feel It.
And I am Fix It. And we talk about life.
And stuff and things.
With the occasional rant.
Which you will have no problem doing.
Hello. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. Good night. Whatever it is, wherever you are, we hope you're having a good one.
There we go. There's that DJ sound. Good evening. I mean, it is evening here, but
it's evening for us, yeah.
In the moment. Good day. Good day to you. Happy April. April has arrived.
It has.
I mean, for as much as spring, wherever you are, what that's like for you, that's subjective.
Sure.
Here we say April showers bring May flowers. Grew up with that little rhyme.
Yeah, well...
But there were flowers in March, so...
Sure.
I didn't know that was a thing, though, when I was growing up in northern Michigan.
No.
So,
and apparently April showers bring ice to the bridge.
Yes, that was
something.
That was something to see.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And then the week has been rough for everybody up there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely rough.
Yeah. We're speaking of the mighty Mackinac Bridge. Mm-hmm. It's been closed multiple times over the weekend.
Record-setting over 30 week, not weekend,
yes. Week.
Record-setting over 30 hours.
Yep.
Over the span of a few days.
Yep. They closing the bridge due to falling ice.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Which we saw very, very brief. In the beginning when it was still frozen. Mm-hmm. Saw the remnants of that, and I could hear that.
Yeah.
From the rest area where we were stopped for 2.5 hours.
It was impressive.
Waiting for the reopening.
Yeah, the ice buildup was something else.
Never in my life have I seen what we saw in northern Michigan coming home.
No, that was...
Never have we experienced an ice storm of that magnitude.
Nothing. Yeah, Gaylord was... what was it 2 years ago? Gaylord was hit with the
tornado.
Yeah, the tornado.
Yeah.
And the ice...
Oh gosh, 3 years ago now.
3 years ago now?
3 or 4? Like it's been a minute.
It's been a little bit. But the amount of damage is very comparable.
The trees were like toothpicks. Acres and acres of trees that looked like toothpicks from being busted over from the ice.
The ice completely...
It was...
Yeah, the stripped trees of their branches.
Extraordinary.
So giant Q-tips. Yeah, it was freaky. It was
the
definitely
whole county
unreal.
Was wild. Everything we drove through. But we did make it home. And then had more weird weather.
Yes.
It's kind of a weird week. Kind of off when we, took Monday off. Mm-hmm. And then it was just kind of weird getting into a swing.
Yeah, the week definitely felt strange.
Of course, the world around us being on spring break, which for us, that doesn't really mean anything.
No,
but
not at all.
it's, for my clients, for, like your coworkers, things like that, people out going on vacations.
Yeah. No change.
It's just kind of different right now. That kind of weird time of year. As I was talking with my colleagues, it slows a little bit. I've been pretty blessed to not slow a whole lot, but just that strange time of year.
Yeah. Well, and everything's changing.
Like season?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the winter, you've got, it's like, heck, people put different tires on their cars. Like you're intentionally cooped up.
Yeah.
It's like you're...
Warm weather. It definitely makes a difference. People being able to go outside, reprioritize.
Mm-hmm.
Life.
You're changing from cave dweller to, active creature.
So spring sports.
Mm-hmm.
If you have high schoolers, you have like the prom and graduation and all the things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. Concerts, band concerts, choir concerts.
Definitely different.
Choir performances.
Definitely,
I'm sorry, it's probably the better term.
Definitely felt weird this week.
It will be for the next month, I think. At least maybe 2 months. 2 months. It'll go by. It'll
Sure,
go by.
always does.
Yeah, it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we're at a different phase in life. We don't have those things.
No, and I can't say I miss any of that kind of stuff.
I will say this. And we have spoken of our youngest daughter's good friend who made some choices.
Yes, we made some choices.
And ended up having 2 children by the time she was 18.
Yes.
Or the second one born shortly after she turned 18. And I will give her credit, in her first pregnancy went right up to, she finished that marching season in band. I mean, I was floored.
Oh, yeah.
I have a picture of her,
She wasn't marching much.
About 8 months
yeah,
at
she
that
about,
point,
yeah,
the last performance.
And you got a picture that she's tiny. She's a little bitty thing. And she's definitely out there.
Yeah, So
she filled out that uniform, especially in the middle.
I miss a good drum line. I do miss that because we used to go to competitions and performances, everyone we could, and multiple in a year, and I do miss that.
Sure,
I miss that. It was kind of something to look forward to, and it was special. It was one thing that our daughter could go be supportive with, and not to say we don't have other opportunities with other family friends.
Yeah, but it's becoming fewer.
It is. And then distance and schedules and life.
Yes.
So, just kind of an odd.
I mean, let's be honest. If you're really missing it, we're a couple miles away from a high school. We could just get a hold
surrounded.
We could get around there. Well, the one big one, we could get a hold of their schedule of events and.
Not the same when you're not cheering somebody on.
Exactly. It's not the same when you're not cheering somebody on.
Not the same.
Actually, I was a little bummed. I found out I've gone to a couple of plays at high school.
Semi-local high school.
Yeah, it's in the town where I work. And I knew I knew somebody whose kids were involved. And that's how I saw the first one. And then they did Percy Jackson, which my oldest daughter's really into.
Very much.
Especially right now. She's in a phase.
That was last summer.
Yeah, and went and saw that one. Well, they did a high school version of the Broadway show of Shrek.
Yes.
And I like, you know what? I think I would have liked to have seen how they did, how they pulled that off.
Yeah. Should pay more attention.
Because I saw some photos. My coworker, he's friends with a lot of the parents because his kids graduated from there and they were involved in that stuff. And he went and to support the group, and he had some pictures, and it's like they had some time, effort, and money into this production.
Yes, they are a very well-off district.
Well, even more so than usual. I mean, the set pieces that they had, he was like, I don't know who built them or if they rented them from somewhere, but they were next level.
Good for them.
Which, yeah, if I had known, I might have gone, because that seemed pretty interesting.
I have to try to figure out how to keep tabs on that stuff.
Yeah, it's like not being connected to anybody in it. It's like you're not really in anybody's communication loop. So if you don't catch sight of it in passing, you don't know it exists. But, that is what it is.
Yeah. That would be interesting to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very good performance at the Percy Jackson.
Well, and let's be honest, it's relatively inexpensive entertainment. And
high schoolers.
And, and, you support the local groups and, there's a no lose in there. Even if it's absolutely just a complete train wreck, you're still going to be pretty entertained.
You're easily entertained.
You
are. It's okay to admit it.
It's not.
It's all right.
I think it's a good thing to be able to find joy in wherever it happens to pop up, and
Yeah.
let's be honest. That kind of thing could be pretty entertaining. It doesn't have to be good to be entertaining. It can just be entertaining.
Just be entertaining.
I think that's why I like crappy movies.
Ugh.
It's like they don't have to be good to be entertaining.
You do
like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. It's like watching a train wreck in slow motion. It's like,
and
oh
yet
my
you
gosh.
will still sit there and watch it.
Oh yeah, you gotta finish. You gotta chuckling and laughing and pointing out all the problems.
Ugh.
Like, oh look, I can see the camera. It's like
Grade B.
Yeah, they're fun. Anyway, you gotta find joy, man. Gotta
You
find
do,
joy.
and you do that well.
I
Probably
try.
a little bit better than me lately.
I try.
So I picked the topic today.
Yes, now that we're like 10 minutes in, we should probably.
Doesn't really matter.
No,
That's all right.
This is the catastrophe that people have signed up to listen to.
This one's not a catastrophe so far. Just wait. It was something I was going back and forth about. We talked about whether or not I would, and I thought, well, yeah, it's fitting, so let's do that. Tomorrow will be the 10th anniversary of my mother's passing, which also happens to be the 2nd anniversary of the passing for the mother of dear, close, we call her cousin-in-law. I've mentioned her before. They're not technically married, but they've been together over 10 years, so just kind of refer to her as a cousin-in-law.
Yeah, she's family
that's their
regardless.
life choice, but become quite close over the last few years prior to her mother's passing. And we're going to be spending the day with her tomorrow, her and my cousin. Talk with her a little bit through the week. The reason I want to talk about it, and I have a couple of angles on it that have come to me in a couple different ways. First, they might be things I've said before, but I'm going to put it all together a little differently and then add some things. I've often told clients, I do not believe time heals wounds. And I had that conversation with her today. And we've had it previously, but she just needed the reminder. She was having a hard day. And, much like the passing of my mother, you don't entirely see it coming. It was a different set of circumstances, and my mother was at home. I was a caregiver along with an aunt and my sister for that brief time, and then my cousin-in-law's mother was in the hospital. It doesn't matter. It's difficult to be told it's coming. It's difficult to watch it happen. It's difficult to know you have to face it, right? And I'd said before when my uncle had passed a few months ago, to talk about Alzheimer's. Well, this isn't going to be about Alzheimer's. We'll kind of prepare for something about that. But I want to talk about caregiving for a second and that correlation to this anniversary. Though it's only been a few years for my cousin-in-law and 10 for me, yes, I'm further down the road, right? I am more healed. We as a family are more healed. Even our oldest yesterday was commenting that she knew the anniversary was going to be tomorrow and that it doesn't hurt as much. It's not that it doesn't sting and have its painful tones, its ache. I don't have a better way to describe it, but it's not as sharp. It's not as consuming.
You become very aware of the lack of their presence. Let's put it, it's like it doesn't have to hurt, but you're always aware.
Pain management. How about that? I'll liken it to my actual physical pain management. Okay. I might be able to look beyond it well enough to function, but it is never entirely gone.
Sure.
The loss will never be gone. That's not what that means.
Nope.
It means you assimilate the feelings into your life, the loss into your life,
Sure.
what it needs to look like. And that caregiving piece, as I've talked with a few clients that are in different circumstances, I couldn't help but kind of parallel some of it, ironically. I've said before, and I'll always continue to say, if my mother had known what it would be like at the end, she probably would not have asked us to do it. Was very physically
Probably,
difficult
yeah.
to move her,
Mm-hmm.
to handle her, as she became less and less mobile. And then we're encouraged to just let her move and do what she needs to do until she can't do it anymore. And you're like, yeah, what does that mean? She's dead weight. 3 of us are having a hard time here. Like, really?
Mm-hmm.
Really? Like when she says she thinks she has to go to the bathroom and there's no possible way she could need to go to the bathroom. And it's really just more stressful and dangerous for us to try to continue to let her get up and move. And it's like, really? I did not feel heard exactly in those moments. And those flashes of memory come, and I'm able to empathize in a way that's very personal.
Mm-hmm.
That caregiving looked very different for my dad than it did my mom. My dad was, again, like my cousin-in-law, in a nursing home. He was in a nursing home and cared for, quote unquote, right? Like there were people.
Mm-hmm.
My mother wanted to go home.
Yeah.
We made it so she could go home.
Yes. Yes, we did.
That was an incredibly difficult process.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be forever grateful for the family that came and cleared out the space to make it so that she could go home.
Yeah, definitely.
Even though it was only for a few days, it was still a long few days. And I'll talk a little bit about that. And maybe it's just therapeutic for me, but, the last thing she wanted to eat was bacon.
Well, yeah.
She knew she was dying.
And she still wanted it.
She wanted to be able to eat bacon. Well, yep. I'm at the hospital. I'm, filling out the paperwork. She's coming home on hospice, so that's like a whole ordeal to transition into hospice care when you leave a hospital. And she asked for bacon. So I'm making the call. Let's make sure there's bacon, right? They're cooking bacon. When I get there, Mom's coming in the ambulance not far behind. By the time she got there and we got her all settled, it was hours later. She was barely conscious enough to speak, let alone eat. And I remember, we had it ready for her, but she never did actually eat it. Kind of comical. Right? Because I'm flip-flopping a little bit, but if you can catch the parallel here, that when my father was dying, and he was about a month away from dying, and I may have told this story as well, that we knew something was coming when he said that the Arby's brisket sandwich was too fatty.
Yeah, that was weird.
What? That's just not a complaint he would have ever had about anything.
Nope.
Ever.
Nope. Can't say that ever came up in any conversation in the entire time
Nothing
I knew the
was
man.
Too fatty.
No.
That's not what he ever cared about.
No. 20 freaking years. No, that has never come. That has
So,
never was a complaint.
I just found it funny. Like, my mom wanted the bacon and could not physically eat it. And then he was getting anything he wanted. Like, literally bags of candy.
Sure.
I did not care.
No, at that point.
I knew he was dying.
Yeah, at that point, yeah.
I bought him whatever he wanted, including Arby's. And Wendy's and Arby's, did not care. And not yet sponsors.
No.
And
then I'll take a free
he's
sandwich,
eating it
man.
and saying that he's it's too fatty. He couldn't finish it. Like, what? So let me go back there for a second. The decision to become a caregiver at any stage in a loved one's illness is very difficult. It's not easily done. And depending on the circumstances, it's months, weeks, years. It's not necessarily just the days like I had, the very hard few days that we had. I can't say I know what it's like. to have to go into a extensively physical caring mode, like my mother required. My father was different. As his caregiver, he was mobile and able for the vast majority of the 18 months I took care of him. He was a pain in the butt, to say the least.
Oh, he was
the
your dad.
Kindest thing I can say.
Yeah, he was your dad. He never stopped being the guy he was.
And I'll tell that story in more entirety another time. But the conversations having with my mother, let me frame this. So she passed on April 5th. 9 days prior, I got the phone call that she had collapsed at work. She'd already been in the hospital for 2 days at that point. 11 days. And I didn't have 11 days. I had 9, right? So that was a whirlwind.
Yeah.
And by the time she called me, it was because she hadn't gotten answers and she didn't want to wait any longer. And I was up there the next day with a different cousin than whom I'm referencing, getting answers.
Mm-hmm.
And we got them. And they had suspected cancer, but were waiting on a biopsy. The time everything was out of whack, and they actually suspected liver.
Yeah.
But it was not. It was pancreatic.
No.
So.
I'm trying to remember. I was there hearing, like, okay, well, with treatment, 6 months.
Oh,
and,
I'll get there.
Yeah, and then...
Yeah, I'll get there.
Yeah.
So then a few days later, it was a biopsy.
Yep.
Right. And then it was, we believe you have months. When they confirmed pancreatic, we believe you have months. But she also had what they thought was a large clot in her leg, which was part of the pain that made her collapse that day. It wasn't just the abdominal, it was her leg as well. A lot of pain. So they went in the next day to do the cath to get rid of the clot. To figure out that she was actually clotting to death.
Mm-hmm.
The cancer had taken over her blood as an organ. I know we all don't think of blood as an organ. And that she was going to pass in days to weeks.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't take weeks.
No.
It was
days.
4 days later. 4 days later. Because she went home the next day and then passed. But very quick.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot to take care of.
Yes.
And my dad was already unwell.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry for the downer that this episode might end up being. I want my humor to come out. I want our humor to come out. But this is a story. It's my mother's story.
Mm-hmm.
She deserves it to be told. She did not know. For the community of people, and mind you, she was a high school janitor. Middle school, high school, public school janitor for 21 years. A lot of people knew her. A lot of people knew her. And a lot of people knew my father, who was also a high school janitor. And they had lost their jobs a few years prior. But everybody still knew them. They lived there decades. Small community. My mother had owned a business. A salon at one point that
get off
a tanning
my wet
salon.
Floor.
Yeah, right. She was known for
Everybody
that.
at the high school knew that.
She was
get
known
off
for
my
that.
wet floor.
My father, in his grief and his inability to be able to process, kept putting off a memorial service. Mm-hmm. My mother did not want a full funeral. She did not want people to see her in a coffin. Do not, and for whatever that's worth, it's not that you disrespect somebody's wishes. A lot of people think that way. But the truth is that whatever that service is has nothing to do with whether or not they're in that coffin or not. It's about the closure. And some people need to see you in the coffin.
Yeah. Well, and I've always, my 2 cents on it, when it's my turn, I don't care what you do. Do what you need to do. For instance, my grandparents both had funerals. My grandmother's funeral was the only time all of the siblings were together at the same time. Throughout the entire history of the family.
Death does that.
It is. It does, unfortunately. But there was something about it. It was... You knew it was done.
Mm-hmm.
You knew it was over.
Yes, there is something about it, yeah.
I have had an aunt who died during a medical procedure. We were notified after she was buried that she had passed. It was, she died, okay, do what you got to do, buried her, no service, no anything. And even though we all cognitively knew she was gone, it always felt like she was going to step through that door next time the family got together.
Of course.
Because she always did.
Of course.
There was never that definitive, this is the end. So I can appreciate not wanting people to sit around and look at your dead body. I can appreciate that mindset.
Sure.
But a funeral has nothing to do with the person that died. It's for the people that are still left living. The funeral's for them. It's, to the extent that some people need that closure. They need,
Absolutely.
If they don't see it, it's not real.
Absolutely.
And then other people need support in the loss. And everybody at the funeral is there because they felt that loss to one degree or another. So you've got support in that. And some people need that support in that moment. They need to be able to grieve with like-minded individuals and share stories and whine and complain, or relive the good times or talk about the bad times, but whatever it needs to unload that emotional baggage. And other people, they don't need any of that crap. And I don't want to call it crap, but but a lot.
Well,
some people just don't need.
Some
people just don't need that. And I think that I don't want a funeral. It comes more down to, I don't want people to stare at me because I'm not comfortable being the center of attention.
Of course.
Well, the whole thing is,
that
though,
will matter when you're dead.
You're not there. You're not there anymore. So, if you want a funeral, or if a funeral is going to be beneficial for people, have a funeral. I don't care. I'm good with that. And if nobody needs it, okay. I'm not here anymore. It's no longer in my hands. You do what you need to do. I have a song list, just in case, but an ever-evolving song list. But it's like I think in a lot of ways, your dad's inability to deal with it kind of gypped a lot of people of being able to get that. Yeah, I guess she really is gone. And
yes,
I think that was a disservice to her in a lot of ways.
Many. Now, as I was just having a conversation with my father's sister, that was the aunt that we went to visit.
Yes.
Just this last weekend. It's true. Nobody argued with him.
No.
Now, this daughter, this person now would have had a very different reaction than the daughter then.
Yeah.
The daughter then was in shock, and there was so many things to deal with that I let him keep putting it off. I didn't have it in me, even though it bothered me. And I kept telling myself it was okay. It was okay to not have the energy. And this is kind of the message I want to give to anybody hearing that in the most arduous times, in the most dramatic times with family things of that nature, you don't have the energy. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. I had to come to terms with what that decision was going to mean, but there was no forcing him. And he was the one that would have had to have been able to provide the permission, to provide the financing,
Yep.
to help make arrangements. our life at that time was very different.
Yes.
We did not have the means.
No.
God, do I wish I would have.
Mm-hmm.
I contemplated all kinds of things that we could have done, but I couldn't imagine what it would have cost either.
Mm-hmm.
And I had just been diagnosed with Lyme disease literally days before my mother's death.
Sure. Yeah.
I was staring headlong into tens of thousands of dollars in treatment that I didn't know how I was going to be able to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
I promised my mother, in some of those conversations I remember, there's a few I remember so vividly. And when we're talking with my cousin-in-law today about the memories and the vividness of memories, right? And it's how some of them were getting to her today, you know, so we talked about that.
Yeah.
The vividness of talking to her, talking to my mother about promising her I would learn to communicate with my father. I would learn to do it better.
Have our youngest do it, because I'll tell you what, she got through to that man.
She had a field day, and she was so young she didn't even understand.
Yep.
We didn't have a great relationship. We never had a great relationship, but my mother knew he was unwell. She had just been told a few months before, the fall before that October, he spent most of that in the hospital. That doctor had said he might not even have a year at the rate he was going. Mm-hmm. Somehow, that man rebounds, okay, and makes it a whole nother year than he was expected to.
You come from tough stock.
And to my dismay, in so many ways, did he last another year? But her concern was not how unwell she was. It was what's going to happen with your dad. And it wasn't even, I'm not talking some deep, mushy thing. It wasn't even that kind of conversation. It wasn't the conversation I can imagine having with you or about you. It wasn't that depth of commitment and love. It was just a duty.
Sure.
And I didn't understand that entirely in the moment I saw it, but I didn't know what to do with it. And it was more, can you take the duty?
Mm-hmm.
Because somebody needs to. And I did. I promised her I would try. I'd do my best because somebody needed to.
Nobody could have done better.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was going to mean. I didn't know what that was going to look like. I had that conversation before I was diagnosed, and she knew I was unwell. Mm-hmm. I had been very unwell for some time.
Yes.
She knew I'd just undergone a bunch of testing. I was waiting on those results. I'd had that appointment made. When all of this had already happened, I'd already had that appointment made to have the follow-up for myself. And I went back and forth from Northern Michigan, back down to my doctor and back and forth to then meet with that oncologist the day that we were told that she was going to die in a few days to weeks. And I love how they did the time frame, and I get the time frame, but they know. Anyway.
Yeah, there's a lot of times like we don't know how you're alive right now.
Yeah, that actually was probably about it. He said he'd never seen such an aggressive form of pancreatic cancer and been doing it for 12 years. I believed him. Mm-hmm. And because it was. And they showed me, eventually I did see the test results to establish that there was nothing in September, and then by April she's gone. But the other vivid conversation that I hold very dear for as long as I will be cognizant is her talking to our daughters on the phone. So time frame here, I get a phone call on a Friday. I'm up there on a Saturday finding out what's going on. Tuesday she has a biopsy. Wednesday she's told you have months. Thursday she has a procedure to remove a clot, and they're like, yeah, we got a more serious problem. Everybody needs to get here. We need to have a conversation about what's going on. We're all there. Mm-hmm. We're all there Friday morning up north to have a conversation with the oncologist to be told what was going on. And then she went home to pass away. Mm-hmm. But so that's what that looked like. Okay, that's what the time looked like. When she told our daughters that she was going to ask Jesus, now, mind you, I know this is not biblical, okay, but hear me out. Mm-hmm. she was going to ask Jesus if she could decorate their castles in heaven. And I remember they were upset. They didn't understand entirely what was happening, but Grandma was trying to tell them, like, I'm not going to be here much longer for you. And this was a conversation prior to knowing just how quickly it was coming.
Yeah.
And they were young. They were very young at the time. So it didn't register entirely, but they did understand. They'd been brought up to understand.
Mm-hmm. Your mom, in her way, was planting the seeds. Yeah.
It was surreal. It's still surreal to think about how quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I made it. And you know what?
Sometimes you just do.
Now fast forward all these years that I am able to stand in the gap for people. And I hear similar stories with similar aspects. And of course, it's not about me. So I don't go into all the things, except very make it as very plain as I can to say, like, more than I can ethically tell you. I can respect much of what you're saying is usually something I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
They usually get the hint. And the fight or flight mode. We hear it. Some people don't really know what it means. There's different thoughts and theories on fawn. That's one you hear, fight, flight, or fawn. Like deer in the headlights.
Mm-hmm.
When you are on high alert for so long, as caregivers become, it is a long, hard road to come down. And we all have the reason why our nervous system ends up going on high alert, right? It's hard to put into words when you don't know what's happening to you, right? Like, even the struggles we were having with the special needs daughter, it put me on a higher alert, right? But like, it was almost, it didn't even compare to what that it was like to have to be on a higher alert to get a call 24/7 about my father, which did happen frequently, all hours of day and night. Whether it was something had happened to him or he had, a test that came back and he'd have to go have an emergency infusion or whatever. It was ridiculous how many times I was taking our kids to the waiting room late in the evening, into the night, because you needed to work. Right? And we didn't have a support system that could just take care of the kids. So, yep, my kids learned a couple things. A couple things real young.
Yep.
That was life. That was life for a while. And then when he passed and I could come down a little bit, that was just about the time it ramped right back up for our oldest. And it was like, okay, there was no time to go down. It was taking care of myself. It was taking care of him. It was taking care of them. It was taking care of us to the best of our ability. Right? And then backed into what had happened with me. The last 5 years for me have been rough. So as I was reflecting on what to say with this, and then happened to have that extra conversation today with our cousin-in-law that touched me, and it made me think, it's worth sharing that the journey, it doesn't even matter. I hate that word too. It's not a journey, just trek. I don't know. Is there a rougher word for like absolutely terrible, horrible? What's a better word? It's terrible.
No, trek I think works. That it kind of implies effort and work and bad things sometimes happening, and it's kind of like settling the West in the early.
There we go.
In the like 1800s, it's like you know where you want to go, and where you're going to end up is going to be good, but the process to get there is going to cost.
I don't know how I did it. I don't know how we did it.
Sometimes you just do. That's
The grace of God.
yeah. That
100% the grace of God, that I am able now to have the career that I have, that I have the knowledge that I have. And, ironic of all days, that I had a follow-up conversation finally with that client I'd referred to a few weeks ago, that I suspected there was something more going on, even dementia related, just something more.
Yep.
She got her diagnosis, and talking with her son, and this week, and it's what do we do? I got to stay in my lane, right? I'm not an advocate anymore, but I know enough. So hard conversations.
You can't do it for him, but you can point him in the right direction.
I did my best.
Yeah,
I did my best, and then to tell her I'll be there for you as long as I can, as best I can, for comfort and counsel. That's a very different passing than what that client will have, a very different passing than what I ever experienced with my parents, if she continues down that road alone, right? But that voice, like her son's voice, right? That loss, that humbleness, that I don't know what to expect and what is happening. Kind of the left field situations, right? Like, did not see this coming. Yep, been there, done that, brother. That you don't know. You don't. And then it's just, what do you do with it? My father's vascular dementia did present in many odd ways. That was always fueled with toxicity because of his kidney failure. So there was always this crazy overlap of stuff. But and some of the wild decisions he made and the things that came out of his mouth. But that's, again, another day. My mother didn't live to see that. She didn't. Now, had she not warned me, in her own weird way, some of the conversations that we'd had the last few months she was alive, some of the strange stuff my dad had been doing, if she hadn't told me, I would have thought that he was just grieving and losing his mind a little bit, like everybody else that goes through great loss. You do kind of lose your mind a little bit.
Yeah. Well,
I would have thought that that's what it was.
Yeah.
Instead, I was all like, okay, we got a bigger problem. Because you've already been acting this way.
Yep.
And now you're just worse. How about we get a neuropsych? And he didn't even fight me.
That in and of itself was a clue.
Because he was forgetting conversations with my mom. Like, he would forget having had entire conversations. And he would argue about strange things. Like, I remember her telling me, like, something about the grapes. Like, he started just eating grapes out of a bag. And my mother had said something about, why aren't you going to wash those? Or something like that. And he just got strangely irate. Like that, woman, what are you talking about? And mean. And just a snap, just like out of nowhere. And she's like, that wasn't normal. But things like that would happen. He would set a bowl down on the counter and be like looking right at it and insist that he didn't know where it was. But it was like right in front of him. Just these strange things that started happening. If she, again, had not told me that those strange things had been happening already, I probably wouldn't have taken the route I did. I would have just thought it was grief and let it go.
Sure.
But even he admitted it was more than that. Hence, he's made strange decisions. Not even, and I'm not just talking about the decision to not have the memorial service. I think that was genuinely he couldn't handle the loss. In his own manly, stoic way, I do know that he loved and cared for my mother, though it was strange the way he treated her in the home when she was home.
Yeah. I've seen that in different forms on a few different occasions.
It did bother me greatly that he didn't even sit near her. He sat in his room. She was in the dining area because that was the biggest place we could put the bed.
Sometimes, and it's one of those...
People would come and visit, come and distract him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I understand it.
Yeah,
I mean,
I do. I did.
I understand it. I don't think I wouldn't do the same. Even if I'd want to, I wouldn't do the same. But
I was angry. I remember being angry a few times. I remember thinking, why do you get off sitting in the other room while we're in here trying to take care of your wife?
mm-hmm.
Like, get her to the toilet and wipe her and clean her off. And, when she's gagging puke on herself, what she had left, the bile that she had left. And why? Why did he get to just sit in the other room and visit with people?
Because he had you.
Uh-huh. Yep. And I figured out that was the truth. And that was the truth until he took his last breath.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember a few times thinking that was...
Yep.
But, I know he needed to.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever he was, that was not his personality. That was not his ability.
No.
And,
that was not the kind of crisis he was equipped for.
No, nor was I. But if you want to talk about somebody that you wonder, was I, my grandmother was, gosh, I've mentioned her a few times lately. That woman said some weird stuff.
She was a tough woman. Not always in the best way.
My paternal grandmother, when she talked about the shoulders, God gave you the shoulders for a reason. What was she talking about? Well, when I was growing up, what she was talking about was just all the responsibilities that we had that were actually, it took me into my adulthood to realize how unrealistic and awful they were and how they were not typical for a childhood. But they were for us because that was what my father grew up with and that's what he expected of us. If there was ever a time when I would have believed, now, retrospect, that I was made for hard things, yep, I would agree. I would agree. God did that. God did that for a purpose. It didn't mean I didn't feel it. It didn't mean that there weren't repercussions, because there sure were.
Sure.
But it's the things that, you hear, it wasn't just an accident. This wasn't just you get a phone call that somebody died in an accident.
No. Sometimes I think that's way easier.
I think it would have been way easier.
Yeah.
Instead, I got to watch. That phone call was my mother telling me, oh, by the way, I've been in the hospital for 2 days and nobody still told me exactly what's wrong, which was mortifying.
Mm-hmm.
Get up there, and then you get some hospitalist who's pushing on her belly saying that he's, just checking her gallbladder. And then my mother says to him, I mean, I'm right there. I'm listening to this. I haven't had a gallbladder in 35 years. So, that really can't be it. Oh, well, these things sometimes can grow back. And just, what are you talking about?
You are...
Why are you lying right now?
So full of crap. Because
experienced the reality of medicine to help propel me to the advocacy work I did. That then propelled me to move on to, as you put it, getting the letters after my name. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine said to me, the letters after my name.
The many
just get it done.
Yes. Yeah, get it done.
And it was true. They lie to you. Doctors do lie. I'm not saying every doctor. I'm saying some do have the propensity. Instead of just saying that the palpable tumor that he was pressing on in front of my face that I could actually see, and my mother was overweight, but I could still see the bulge, that extra something that he was pressing on. That's how large it was. Mm-hmm. It was on her liver. What he was pressing, by the description of the report that I read after the fact, I understood what he was doing at the time. He was just checking it. Mm-hmm. But he didn't have the balls to tell her what it was.
No.
He was leaving that for somebody else.
He probably didn't have the authorization.
I don't know about that.
But
I don't know about that.
It's one of those.
He can read reports, and he was a doctor.
Sure.
And he could have very well had a conversation with my mother.
But was he
that she needed to be referred to an oncologist? Yeah. But that's not how that went.
No. Well, and this is one of those. For my own mental well-being, I will choose to not believe that it was malicious.
Oh, I didn't say
Yeah.
malicious.
Well, no, but
No.
there's no such
He
thing
was
as
sparing himself from
yeah,
having a
well,
conversation.
and that's malicious. That's selfishness.
You know, I'm not going to go down the ethics for a doctor,
But
but I've now witnessed for myself in my care more than once a doctor who's not honest. So I believe that they will skirt what they can when they can.
well, and they can't afford to be wrong. That's the other part of it too, though. It's like they can't if they're
He
wrong.
could have phrased it anyway.
Yeah,
There's abnormalities, and we need to refer you.
Yeah,
he could have
it's like,
phrased it so many ways.
Yeah, there's something there.
Like, are you really going to try to tell her that you need to see if there's a gallbladder that's grown back? That's not what you were doing.
No, and if you can feel a gallbladder, then there's seriously something wrong.
And I had already seen the labs. My mother had authorized for the nurse to bring me all the lab work so that I could review it with my cousin who was a nurse. And we already knew.
Yep.
Like, we already knew there was something very wrong.
Yes.
They were just trying to determine exactly what the source was.
Sometimes, though, I fix things. And as part of my job, I like to find the root cause of what was there. This was the failure, but what caused the failure? If we can figure out the cause, then we can keep it from failing again. I can appreciate that mindset. But there comes a point where it doesn't matter where the failure came from.
It's just failed.
It failed. You need to fix the problem. It's like, that's great and all. We need this fixed. We need this, or at least, I should say, at least in this case, we need this addressed now. Stop waiting. Address.
I think
it's like, we can figure this out later. What's going on? What do we need to do? I think
he was just a weekend hospitalist, and maybe he figured she'd just, die eventually, and it wasn't worth getting into. I do wonder that. There's a lot of things I wonder.
Entirely possible.
Not how it went, but it was real. That really happened, and that really happened in front of my face. And there were other witnesses. It wasn't just myself that was in the room that day. That really happened. But it was all this teaching stuff, all this stuff that God does work for good, even when you do not even know remotely how it could ever feel good. It does. It does come around. It does become connected.
Well, there's, in exercising the no pain, no gain. That's not, in reality, that's not necessarily true. But when you build a muscle when you work a muscle you've never worked before, it's sore, but that soreness is telling you that it's giving the opportunity to be stronger later. Like, you don't know what pain is preparing you for in the future. Sometimes things just hurt. Other times it's preparatory. And you don't know, and it doesn't matter. Even if you did, it still sucks in the moment.
Oh, it was awful.
Yeah.
It was atrocious.
But I wanted to roll back a little bit. Swing back to something that you said earlier.
Okay.
It's like right near the beginning of this conversation. You said you don't believe that time heals all wounds.
Well, no.
No. And I'm not arguing the point. I'm not going to argue that point because I can't. But I would say in a lot of ways, time gives you the opportunity to heal.
Yes.
Now, whether you heal or not depends on you.
I would agree.
And healing doesn't mean you don't have scars.
Oh, absolutely.
Like in the conversations, like I lost my grandfather when my grandmother and grandfather in like the 5th grade, and let's just say that was a few decades ago. And there are times it still hurts. And it wasn't traumatic like your mom's. But yeah, it's like you knew it was coming. They were like mid-70s. You knew it was coming. But it still hurts. I am healed from it. But sometimes the scar doesn't flex right.
Sometimes scars itch.
They itch. Sometimes you pull them. Sometimes you abrade them a little bit.
I mean, I've got a couple scars, so I can appreciate that analogy. I've got one right now. It's driving me nuts.
Yeah. It's like this time of year, usually my leg itches like crazy. But So, it's like time itself. Time is just opportunity. That's all time.
It is what you do
Time
with it.
really is just the opportunity to do something. Um, what you do with that time is on you.
100%.
Now, sometimes you need somebody. Sometimes you need help. Just like you get an injury, sometimes you need a surgeon. It's like sometimes you need help to get the healing process going. So it's time, and make use of the time to get the help you need if you need it. But there was another one where something else you were saying. It's like you don't know how you got through it.
God.
And well, with kind of the idea is like it was you do it differently now than you did then. And
when yes, there's a few things.
Go
ahead.
The person you are now would have handled it differently.
Yes.
Now, and there's the idea that you gave what you had at the time. You did the best that you could at the time. And the person that you are now learned from that. So you're now better than you were. So it's not entirely fair to go back and say, well, I'd do it. I know better now. You're right. But you knew what you knew then, and you made the best decision you could at the time. And it might have only been 20% of what you know yourself to be capable of. You gave 20%. But that 20% was all you had. You actually gave 100%. You gave it everything you had.
I did at the time.
Now learn. By all means, learn. But there's no point in beating yourself up. If you know you could have done better when you were doing it, okay, beat yourself up a little bit. But if you gave everything that you got in the moment, it's like you didn't have the energy to fight anymore because you already used it all.
You'd met him, right?
Oh yeah, I met him, knew him. Like we got along pretty good for the most part. After the first month or two.
And you know how it was so.
Oh no, and
it was hard going into town when we would go up north, and every single trip I would take, I'd run into at least one person.
Yeah. But
I wanted to know when that memorial service was going to be.
I just don't want you to. It's like there's no point in beating yourself up because you could do better now.
Oh, sweet.
Because the person you were then did everything that you could do at the time.
Thank you, sweetie. But that's not what I was saying.
I know, but I wanted to make sure. It's like, but I'm iterating for everyone.
That's true. Thank you for that.
And then a third point was like, it's like I don't know how you got through it. It's like you get through it. You just drive through. Well, it kind of reminded. Well, you keep moving. Well,
yes, I did.
You keep moving, but it reminded me of the 23rd Psalm.
Okay.
Or at least a point that's taken out of the 23rd Psalm. It's like, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Those are those moments where you're at your absolute lowest, where everything is just absolutely terrible, and it's like, how am I going to how am I going to survive this? It's like, if read that verse, it's like, I walk through the valley. It doesn't say, I take up residence in the valley.
That's true.
And I really like the idea of the imagery is like, I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. The shadow. Death isn't in the valley. You're in the shadow of what's going on. You're in the darkness because the in this case, in this analogy, death is blocking the sun. But the sun moves throughout the day, and you can move out of the shadow. The trick is to just keep moving. You can give up. You can give up, and you can stop right there, and you can stay in the darkness forever, or you can just keep driving forward. Now, your version of driving forward and somebody else's version of driving forward are going to be completely different because they're in a different spot and they're a different person. They have different strengths and weaknesses, and all of that.
Well, I pulled the Forrest Gump down at the bench for a while.
Oh, sometimes
I ate that box of chocolates just sitting there watching life go by. I did that a time or two.
Yeah, but at the same time,
I did not stay there.
But you don't stay there, and there's nothing wrong with stopping, catching your breath, so that you can take another step forward.
Which I would encourage any caregiver, any person going through anything hard.
Well,
but
and
yes,
to
your point, yes.
We heard a man by the name of Jamie Clark speak at a convention once, and he's an individual that climbed Mount Everest. On his third attempt, he climbed Mount Everest. And he was talking about, it's like, it's like he was doing this really slow plodding walk. It's like they had a buddy that, one of the members of the team almost made it to the summit, didn't have it in him to make it to the summit and come back. So he turned around and they're trying to get him, they're talking to him on the radio, trying to get him to come down, and they're going up to meet him. And there's this really slow plodding walk. And he's like, it's like, and he's just kind of demonstrating how they were doing. It's like, you don't realize I'm actually moving about twice as fast right now than what you do on that mountain with all of your gear in that weather, as tired and as low as oxygen. This is a sprint compared to what you actually are doing on that mountain. It's like the amount of this supreme effort just to take this ridiculously slow plodding step. It's like, that's where my goal is. Sometimes the goal isn't to get to the summit. Sometimes it's to get to the other guy so that you can get him home. Your valley, my valley, your shadow and my shadow, very different things. But the problem isn't, the real problem isn't being in the valley and being in the shadow. It's giving up and staying there. You can, it's the mindset. It's like it might not be physical activity. It just could be the mindset of, no, I'm still moving forward. Like, yeah, it hurts. Yeah, this sucks. Yeah, I trip and fall. Metaphorically speaking. But, you can still keep driving forward.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And you have. And you did.
I did.
And sometimes it's like you move forward, sometimes not because you want to, sometimes it's like it's either keep going or die.
Remember the movie Facing Giants?
Yes.
There were times I would watch the clip of the scene where he is encouraging the student to do the dead crawl.
Yeah, doing a death crawl with a dude on his back. Yep. Yep.
That's about what that felt like.
Yeah.
And scream at yourself.
Yep.
Don't quit. Don't quit.
Mm-hmm.
Don't quit. There's a book behind you. It's called The Best Loved Poems of, I can't read the rest of it, the American People. And top. So that was my mother's. I don't know exactly where she got it from. I don't recall. She loved it. It had all kinds of poems in it. I remember she would read them to me when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is called Don't Quit. And I can hear her voice still and remember sitting on her lap while she would read it. Couldn't tell you off the top of my head at the second who the author is. But, yeah, go ahead, pull it down. It's probably one of the marked pages. There's very few things of my mother's that I have, like, genuine recollection and connection to some of the memory. I wanted to be able to keep and preserve what I could, but my mother had a lot of things. She was a hoarder at the end. That's another episode too. But which I came to terms with why she ended up that way. And I've had time to analyze it as a mental health therapist and in my studies and dissecting a lot of things about my life. I was able to do that. And I am grateful. I'm grateful that in my mother's death, I found life. And, I'm sorry. 1 second. Oh, I thought it was one of the marked pages, but
no, but that one's pretty good too.
No, yeah, right. In my mother's death, I found my life. It might not have happened right away, but it did. The truth be told, in my mother's passing, the estate was not entirely completed for her mother. So there was there was some funds
Mm-hmm.
there, and my father was gonna have to live on them. I mean, my mother was still working. He was not.
No.
So he just lost a substantial amount
Mm-hmm.
of the household income. And I did borrow, and I say borrow because I did repay. My first round of treatment, I did not have the funds. I had literally just lost my mother. I quit my job, and I had a part-time job at the time. I was in college. I quit that. My whole life went upside down and sideways. And my father had offered for me to use some of that and then repay it.
Mm-hmm.
I took him up on it.
Yes.
Yeah, my father didn't give anything to
No.
me. Let me be very clear on that. He did not give me anything. It was an earn it or, work for it, borrow. It was borrow, right? So my repayment then was paying for his housekeeper after he'd moved
Mm-hmm.
into the new home, because I also then refused for my children to become his housekeepers, which is part of what he wanted. Now, did I know that part of that was probably just for him to be able to have an opportunity to see them? Yes, but they were in school. They had responsibilities. Like, it couldn't just be what he wanted when he wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
So, boundaries.
No.
Again,
But
boundaries.
They were still there a lot.
But it was the idea that I had to repay it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember very, very vividly when I swiped the debit card, thinking I would give any of it to have her back.
Yep.
And I believe it was the Spirit of God that very clearly said back to me, and she wants you to live. It took a long time to figure out what that meant. Thinking of my health differently, thinking of my gifts differently, and all of the pain and hardship that came after she passed. All of the strange breakdown moments, which I've talked about a few of them that were pretty vivid, losing it in Menards,
Mm-hmm.
or losing my mind on Valentine's Day. Christmas was so hard for so many years. What it was like to have to talk to our children about her death, and even my father's death too, but her death, because she was everything. She was Santa Claus, Tooth Fairy,
Mm-hmm.
everything all in one, Easter Bunny.
Oh, and always so over the top.
And passing on Easter made that a little extra as well, because
Sure. Yeah.
it was Easter, and the kids knew it.
Yep.
The kids knew. And she had started to buy candy. There was a bunch
So
of
much
candy.
Yeah, there's so much candy in the diabetic
story
home.
that when we were cleaning up the house to bring her home, and we were cleaning up the kitchen, and I was standing in the kitchen with another cousin, and we opened up the cupboard door to put some of the things in it that were on the counter, and literally this cascade of candy came out, and he just lost it, laughing, and he's like, I thought they were diabetics, like...
You never know there's diabetics living here.
It was... I mean, you're laughing so hard in the moment, but you're like, really? This is... How shocking that we ended up here.
Yeah.
You know what? How shocking. Like, that my mother would... And God bless her, end up with pancreatic cancer.
She kicked that pancreas's butt.
I mean, like, she just... No, it was a joke forever that she played her insulin pump like a piano. And, Lord, I couldn't even imagine what she'd do nowadays with the modern technology. Are you kidding?
Oh, yeah, close feedback loop on the...
And forgive me, I'm trying to find it. Don't quit. It was unknown. It says unknown author.
Ah.
But there it is. And the jokes that we've been able to have, and But then the serious things have been able to put together, and the idea that she did make terrible decisions. They both did for their health. They both absolutely did. Horribly mismanaged diabetics who made terrible decisions. And yeah, they lived how they wanted to live right up to the end. Literally, they both did. Mm-hmm. My father, I just insured it. My mother just lived to. There is the pain that will always be there. Most certainly. And all the things I wish I could ask her or tell her, and I think of her all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Every day.
We're surrounded by things that were hers. It's
absolutely.
Yeah.
And as our daughters have gotten older, and the things that she has not been here to witness. Mm-hmm. And even our youngest now will say that she does remember Grandma. It's not the same ache for her because she was young and that cognition was different. And, that's okay. Like, she'll see the pictures and the little videos, and, we'll have memories every once in a while. We'll talk about stuff, but, even our oldest, it's different for her, just that little bit older.
Yes.
That she does remember a little bit more and miss a little bit more. And, it wasn't a pleasant trek by any means to have to grieve her while I was taking care of my father. And being a caregiver is hard enough without the extra. But there wasn't getting around it. It wasn't. I did grieve her. I did. It's not as fully as I would have wanted to, but I did eventually take that minute, and God gave me that minute. It was a short minute. It was just a short few months before things really escalated with our oldest, and then life picked right back up. And then my physical issues just escalated, and 10 years, and so much has happened in 10 years. Mm-hmm. And that's what they say. I know in 10 more, I'll think even more differently, but I can tell you that right now I am grateful that I had the experience. And I know it's a strange thing to say, and not everybody would understand that, but once you're beyond something and you're able to allow yourself to have the perspective for the good that can come from the bad, right? Beauty from ashes. Mm-hmm. And that I've lived that. I can own that. That is my life. That is my story. That is where I came from. That is what made me me and has made me capable. And I've said I've grown in the last few years, specifically the last two, very much in my confidence as a counselor. And I can own that. I am very good at that. That is a gift. It is a gift that I try to steward well and not take advantage of. And part of what has made that possible for me was the loss. And when I was able to assimilate the loss and the pain and allow it to help me grow as a person, as a parent, as a wife, our relationship changed from it. Our family is irrevocably changed. The relationship with my aunt, both of my aunts, has changed very, very much. And my mother's relationship with my father's sister, the one that we just visited, they were very close. She misses her very much. It was shocking and awful, but for as unfathomably awful as her last few minutes were to watch, I'm glad it was quick. Mm-hmm. I am glad that she did not live to see some of the things I had to endure, because I can appreciate that mama heart. She had a hard enough time with what I was going through. I don't know how she would have done with my brain surgery.
Yeah.
Let alone losing a kidney.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't be what I am. I wouldn't be capable. And I wouldn't be able to pass that on to other people. Mm-hmm. if it were not for her death. So when God makes those promises, we might not feel it, we might not see it right away, but there is the blessing.
Might not always like it. Let's be honest.
Oh my gosh,
let's be
no,
fair.
You're not going to like it.
You're not gonna like it.
But I wanted to provide. I mean, there's so much more I could say, but that
Sure.
in a memorial for her, to be able to speak that way of her life and death, and in that meaning of the woman that she was, a very well-loved woman in the community.
Oh, your mom was freaking funny.
Everybody loved my mother. There wasn't one person that didn't love my mother. To some degree, for some reason, she was just a kind woman.
Yeah, her laugh was infectious.
It was. Her nickname was Giggles for a very long time.
Goofy.
When she was younger.
When she turned on the Goofy, man, it was a good time.
Yeah. Yeah. I will never be her.
There was a little while there she hated me.
Well, dating her teenage daughter.
Yeah.
That's another story for another time.
Yeah.
Today's all about the love. And she loved you.
Yeah. I grow on people
She
like a
loved
fungus.
I have shared before, I'll say again, just in that, to summarize who she was, right? So when I went to her so many years ago and said we were struggling and I didn't know what to do, and I thought about separating from you, and then she just looked right at me and said that she could make room for you and the girls. Like, what? That she's gonna make room for you and her granddaughters in her house, not me. Like, what? I'm laughing about it now, but let me tell you, it wasn't then. And that's just, she loved you. She did.
Took a little while.
It didn't take that long.
It's because I'm awesome.
I miss her.
Yeah.
I do.
Mm-hmm.
I always will.
She would have loved some of the over-the-top recipes we have come up with in memory of her.
In memory of her. Which, going back on strict keto, I will not be doing tomorrow. But yes. So thank you for listening to that. Thank you for letting me talk about that. It's something she deserves. She deserves to be talked about. She did not have a funeral. Like published an obituary, deserving obituary. After my father had passed, I prepared for both of them, but this is how she can be memorialized.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about her.
Yep.
And then letting other people hear about the hope that can come if they allow, and the healing they allow.
Yeah, give yourself a time.
Yes.
It's like
yeah.
The pain is there. It's doing something. You got to get. You got to feel it. Otherwise, it never really goes away. You got to let yourself feel it. It sucks. You got to let yourself feel it. You got to absorb it. Let it become a part of you, and then the sting starts to go away over time.
And then I think would be due to talk about like caregiving specifically, maybe some of those.
Yeah, my experience with that is way different than yours.
Yeah, so I think that would be good to talk about.
Sure.
Just so that information can be out there. It was very different for her than it was my father.
Mm-hmm.
Like incredibly different, but
I still get emotional at squeaky wheels at the grocery store. So, so there's that.
And just the hospice was amazing. They really were.
Mm-hmm.
I think they could have been a little bit more honest. But I appreciated after the fact that they do the best they can, and that system is not what it was originally created for. It's become also a bureaucratic nightmare, unfortunately. But yeah. Anyway,
yeah,
she passed at home. That's what she wanted,
and
her stories were telling. So, thank you for listening. We can end there.
Okay. So I guess we will.
Okay.
That being the case, I'm Fix-It.
I'm Feel It.
We hope you join us in the future.
Until next week.
Y'all have a great one.